Welcome back, Beacon of Light. Thank you for joining me here as we study the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 1, verse 8, and that's the book of King James Version. And hold on first, it's echoing, so this is live. Okay, and so as we dive into this verse word for word, and we'll be diving into the 21st century on King Felipe of Spain and just seeing to see if everything's working out fine. Uh, Before we start, just let me know if you have any issues, if you're not seeing anything or hearing anything, and I will fix it since this is the first time I'm doing this live. Just bear with me, and I hope you're doing well with wherever you're at, whether you're on the other side of the world or here in the US. And it's pretty late. It's about 10:33 here in the evening, and I'm sure there, wherever you're at, it's more like daytime, noontime. So, anyways, as we dive into this verse, hopefully that you'll be able to understand it as we dive into King Felipe of Spain and what that looks like in carrying that blueprint and the consequences. Like for yourself, if you had gone into a conflict as what he went into before he took over his kingdom, if you're courage enough to fire your own family member or take away their title. And so let's dive in as we see here what King Solomon had presented about 3,000 years ago when he had reigned. And if you had followed other verses that I had gone into word for word in the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 1, you'll be able to see more of a timeline of how things are happening and the things that people actually pursue doesn't really satisfy them. And then others who are actually ingrained into the rat race of pursuing that dream and really chasing that passion in life or that calling. It all depends on where one's spiritual relationship is with God, with one's awakeness. And it doesn't really matter what religion one is in, as long as you're actually carrying that true, the values and the principles of your religion, of your faith in Christ. And it's more of having that relationship. And so let's dive in into this verse as we go into it. Let's read it first. All things are full of labor. Man cannot utter it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. And as we dive into that, what does it mean? And let's start with all things. And most people, when they look at this word, all is more like the all things more in the materialistic level, materials of life. But we're going to dive more into this word first, as in all, as in the people, the souls. And when it comes to diving into this angle, you're seeing more of the bigger picture of what's happening in life, what you're diving into, and what it actually, how it's going to impact you as you carry on and fulfilling that. So, bringing in these two words, the things and the material things in life, when individuals dive into the material things, there's like what we've discussed in other verses, you become empty in that there's this emptiness as you're pursuing your blueprints, not realizing is it actually your blueprint or is it more of a thing of trying to fit into society, of trying to obtain that type of title or that type of position. And that's where most people will feel empty is as they chase that dream, as they chase that type of material thing that they're pursuing, whether it's a profession in like say in sports or in being an actor or being building your own business. If you are building your own business just to make a name for yourself versus seeing more of the whole and how you can actually serve for humanity and how to make impact and how to better individuals' lives, you're unable to really see that impact if you're not as genuine in your walk with and your connection with the individuals that you connect with. So again, that emptiness is that lack of relationship in God, in Jesus Christ, in our sovereign Yeshua, Yeshua. Some people pronounce it Yeshua and others Yeshua, depending on the root of where they're coming from. And when it comes to just following of your passion for Christ, it will present you will present yourself to the people as you communicate with them, as you interact with them. They'll see that and the mirror of what you're reflecting and what you're showing. So, however, your relationship is with God, as you build that throughout your lifetime or throughout your chapters in your relationship with God, people can really feel that energy that you're bringing forth. Going to the next word are full of full. This word is more like, let's see, I'll go in this direction. Full is more of that devouring what is there in front of you. And that is more like in a negative way of obtaining and trying to, again, build that title for yourself. But let's do devour, as most people see it more as in devouring is more like in food. And so in this angle, it's the spiritual angle of it, of that lack of in Christ. And I'm just gonna see here to see if anybody else is on, but I'll be looking down on and off to see where we're at when it comes to others watching, if I need to respond. So if you have any questions when it comes to the verse or the word that we're diving into, just jot them down and I'll respond to them. And I will just be looking at my phone on and off to see if there are any questions. So as one is going into that all things are full of labor. Full is there where you're diving into whatever you're trying to pursue in life. And if that's the rat race without any pause, without any connections, and you're cutting off all your ties with individuals, there's a good side of it and there's a bad side. So as we dive into King Felipe VI of Spain, what occurred with him in his reign before he took it is that he had stepped his before he actually dives into anything in life, he dives in and studies that platform or that kingdom or wherever he's walking into. So he actually has a better understanding of his title and how he's going to be presenting himself. And so before he took that reign under his father, he dived in on actually what was happening within his kingdom of the royalty family. And he had discovered that his father was actually mingling around with the money and really taking some part of those finances on the outside of the country overseas onto another bank. And he found out, King Felipe found out that he was a beneficiary of that account. And so everything started making sense to him on the corruption within the monarchy of what was actually happening and what his father was actually doing. And because of that, he saw and understood why the people in Spain were starting to not trust in the monarchy, not trust in the royal family, not trust in their government, is because of what was happening. And of course, as you see when it comes to the government and politics, if the higher up are using their own benefits of corruption and taking people's money for their own, you're able to see how it is really like the have-nots, the have, and the those who don't have the money is because as money is being pulled out of the system, out of the people, and is being jeopardized in ways that the elite or the royalty status of individuals really take advantage of that system. It shows that this corruption within the whole. And so, as one creates some type of emptiness, one is affected. And you start seeing how everyone is actually connected, like in what's happening across the world when it comes to different types of wars, where individual will say, that's not my war. But in all of it, when it comes to the web of life and the interconnectedness that we are all in, the whole planet, we are all in this together, whether we're doing it directly or indirectly. And, anyways, so going back to King Felipe, he had realized that his father was actually mingling with the money for his own use. And so people were starting to feel the pain of that cost. They were able to feel the consequences based on what his father was doing. And so, like in any country that takes advantage of the system, you start seeing more homeless people or different organizations. It's like different areas, different pockets within the country is not stabilized due to the corruption. And so, as individuals dive in into just devouring that and pursuing that and what they believe is their dream, but it isn't, and it isn't, say, like what his father was doing, that wasn't in God's will. And King Felipe was able to discern that. And as he walked into the kingdom and owned it, and he was able to transition from taking the throne, he actually cut off his father. He cut off his title in order to bring the trust back to his people. So labor is more of a, so going back all things are full of labor. As a person dives into that passion in life or that blueprint, there's a difference when it comes to the passion in life, one's passion, one's blueprint, one's calling, and one's mission. But I can dive deeper into that into my courses. And then when it comes to the actual courses, I won't be presenting like here on this platform on this YouTube. It's more on diving deep into verse verses of the book of Ecclesiastes. But in the courses that I've provided, it's going to be other sources and documentations, journals, academic journals, and experiences from other individuals. And I'll be providing links and provide reading materials. And there'll be one-on-one um, connection, one-on-one counseling, or one-on-one ministering in ways that you may need assistance in your spiritual growth, in your awakening with God, or in awakening with your spiritual gifts. And there'll be group settings also, which will be live, and they'll be recorded for you if if you miss those events. And anyway, so going forward, when it comes to this verse and the labor part of it, we've talked about individuals who have dived deep into the labor aspect where they become drained in the energy, and that's where they feel empty. But there's this positive angle of blueprints, which is what King Felipe did. It's deep into, so he's in that connection with God. You can tell that he has a relationship with God. And so, in having that angle, that anybody who dives in is that passion and passion to stabilize the system. I apologize, I'm writing backwards, so if I'm writing slow sometimes. But that labor becomes a passion, and it won't feel like work. On the negative side, if you're really caught up on the material side of it with no connection in yourself and others, life and God, the labor will definitely feel like work, and it won't feel like you're actually in the flow, like what Kobe Bryant had mentioned in previous of the verse that we had gone into. And when a person is in their destiny, they're feeling as if they're in this flow and they're always tuning in to what God is guiding them, what they need to do, and the next step, and where they need to go, and the people that they need to connect with. When you're in your destiny, you're actually able to experience the serendipities and the connections. Different individuals in your life will start seeing, you'll start seeing the connection, how they actually became messengers for your answers that you've been praying about, or messengers of other ways to manifest, but more of to create what you need to create. So when it comes to the deeper side of these courses, it's not we're going to be detoxing ourselves from new age, from any type of ideologies, of theories and ways how you're actually outside of that Christian mindset, of that Christian walk. So as we dive into the courses I'll be providing, it'll be more detoxing yourself from the fundamentalism, the dogmatic ways of how people manifest and how people create when it comes to your alignment with God, because most people don't acknowledge the Father, the Holy Spirit, Jesus in their life as they pursue their calling or their passion in life. Again, when it comes to this angle, it's more of one's blueprint of what King Felipe was walking into his title as a king. And anyway, so he had that passion to really understand how corrupt the system was, the passion to change it by taking the title away from his father once he took over. So it says, man cannot utter it. So when the man cannot, they're stuck in that material of not being actualized. So that's the non-actualization. Oh, I think that's backwards. Actualization. You might not be able to see that because of the lighting, but anyways, I'll write a little smaller. So, man cannot see it or hear it. So in this line is he's unable to utter it. He's unable to speak it is because he has this non-actualized awakening. So he's mainly sleepwalking. He's mainly walking like a robot, um, just doing things in this routine way without being aware of what he's doing. That non actualization is when you're actually disconnected in your destiny and you are actually disconnected from others around you. This angle is more of a function within the mind. Many people who follow their dream in life, not connected to God or have the spiritual awakening. They're mostly functioning more of this material world of the logical part of their mind, where the heart is actually not actualized. It's not connected. It's not bridged from their mind to their heart. And I'll dive more deeper into the courses when it comes to that. And so they're unable to speak what it is because they're caught up in their own world, in this world of linear way of thinking. And it says the eye is not satisfied with seeing. And so that's what happened with King Felipe when he had understood what was happening within his family of the corruption of what they were doing with the taxes, like his sister and the husband. They were also in a way unlawfully handling money with their taxes, and he also took her out of that royalty title. And so he was more in pursuing that blueprint, pursuing that monarchy, pursuing the trust back from his people. So the monarchy doesn't fall apart due to what his father was doing and what his sister and the husband were mingling with the money and not being honest within the system that the monarchy had created for a stabilized society, civilization within Spain. And so he had the awakening to understand of of that angle and present it and be more public to the people by presenting his own finances and made it public for people to actually see what's happening, to let them know that he's not there to be king, to be in secret of his own actions, like what his father and his sister was doing. And so when he was going into as when he's reigning into a king, and he took that title over, he had presented it that it's a new monarchy in these new times, trying to help his people that yes, the monarchy is corrupt. Yes, the system is the foundation of it is cracked, but allow me. That's what he was trying to present. Allow me to step in and gain that trust back by presenting the corruption and presenting on the solutions behind it. And so he made it public and he announced the corruption and what the transitions and the chapters that were happening into a better society, into building that foundation again. So the I is not satisfied. This is where he saw that even though he had read and dived into understanding the corruption of what was happening within his family, what they were doing, he wasn't satisfied with where it was at. And so that's on your end. What would you do if you found your family doing what they were doing? Would you go in front of them, go up to them and confront them, like what King Felipe did? Or would you step back and just allow them to walk all over people and treat people in ways that is less human or mistreat others just because they have that title? And so there's in different companies, I'm sure, businesses that you've worked with where the higher up, the manager or the boss, your supervisor, actually abused that power and they overextended the power for themselves to make themselves look more as if they have this control of what's happening, but really behind the scenes, they're actually presenting this mask that is not the real person. And it may look like the real person, it may look like their identity, but it isn't because of that mask, because of that non actualization. And it may look like the person may say, "This is who I am. This is how I've always done it." Da, 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 da. But in reality, when it comes to keeping a system, a government, anything alive and the foundation strong within it, in reality, when it comes to also building a business, there's always changes. There's always chapters, turn the page. That worked before, but now it doesn't. And so that's where King Felipe had the courage and he was very determined based on the trainings that he had when he went into the military and studied all the three branches. And he was really educational in all areas of life. He was able to present that in a fatherly way, like certain leaders of the world. They present it in a fatherly way that, of course, yellow journalism can distort that. But he was able to take that title away from his father and take his sister away from the royalty circle also. And so he wasn't afraid to present the corruption within his family. And so that's where you need to step in. Like, what do you need to do when it comes to if you see somebody in your family or within your business, and it's not happening, and it's not in alignment with your protocols or the procedures or the guidelines. And so it's anything like anything in life when it comes to an organization, whether it be a community or a business or your own neighborhood, people need to speak up. And anyway, so moving on. So he was not satisfied, and he was able to really present the solution by taking out the title. And that is where he was actually cutting the ties from his family. And sometimes you have to do that to move forward and really pursue your destiny, pursue your blueprint, and carry that. And so, yeah, and not being satisfied, he cut ties. And in cutting ties, you're creating boundaries. You're creating this boundary for people to actually respect you. And you have to be strong when you're creating that boundary, and it's not like going around the bush and presenting it. So you're trying not to hurt their feelings. It's trying to be more upfront and forward and present it in ways that where their soul actually needs to hear it. Without that boundary, you lose the respect. You lose the respect and also the trust. And when it comes to connections with others, people will start moving away from you, and they'll start talking bad mouthing, bad mouthing you. And then when they're in front of you, they're actually positive in your presence. And so that's why it's good to build that boundary, is to help the other individual know that you're serious about the structure. You're serious about the guidelines of what you've presented in order for you to carry your blueprint. And so, in the long run, if you don't present these boundaries and these higher responsibilities onto them, and carry yourself in this higher mind, in the thinking, feeling, and doing. In the long run, if you don't do that, you're actually disfavoring yourself and slowing down your personal growth, and not just yourself, but also that that individual. So it's good that King Felipe VI of Spain had taken out that title away from his father due to his just mingling with the money and taking, just really being greedy, taking it for himself and abusing that power. If he didn't do that, if he didn't take away that title from his father would not have seen that he was actually in this Luciferic way of presenting himself in ways that is just not Christ-like, and it wasn't godly. And so that's where it was good for him to take out the title from his father and took out his sister from the circle, is to help them see the consequences, because many people in this world, they don't they don't see that they're accountable. They don't see that um, they don't need to apologize. They don't see that they have any wrong in the actions that they did. They actually deflect, they project, and they mirror all the issues onto other persons, other people, or they'll even leaders. They'll say, "Oh, I didn't my life stinks because of this president," or "My life is this way is because of this leader or this manager." And so it really is within ourselves to have that awakening and be vulnerable and to really be transparent. And how does that look like when we carry our blueprint and we want to uphold it by confronting those loved ones and the connections that we have so we can help them grow also. And so he was not satisfied, and what he did was, of course, cut the line, took off their titles. And how does that look like for you in your life? What do you need to do when it comes to upstepping and wanting to see the results of what what should happen? What are the steps that you need to do? Do you need to get others involved to support um, that idea or that guideline, or do you need to actually put it down on paper if you own a business and make it uh, really letter of the law and this is what it is, and present it to your team that these are the protocols that needs to be upstepped within the business with and having a strong foundation. And anyways, so I'm just going in circles. So anyways, so going on um, with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. So when the eye is closed. So going back, I skipped this. Going back to this, all things are full of labor. Man cannot utter it. The eye is not satisfied. So going back to the eye is the window of the soul. Whoops, that's hiding it the other way. The eye is the window of the soul. And as you dive into your own spirituality and to your own awakening and your own relationship with God, you're able to see through a person's soul and see what their motives are. You're able to understand where they're coming from, and you're able to really discern soul in a way before before you've even spoken to them, before you actually knew them. And that will go into a deeper topic when it comes to the course of how to discern a soul's age, their age, and seeing the soul's age, whether they're actually your elder or you're there to teach them. And and so the soul, if the soul is not actualized and connected in God, of course, it's not gonna have an awakening of what needs to happen. So King Felipe was able to see what he needed to change because of his soul is actually has that stabilization, that actualization, the connection in God. And the soul is, yeah, as you look into the eyes of the soul. And on a deeper level, when it comes to this angle, the eye is also, when it's actualized, it's also the third eye, the pineal gland that's activated. And so as that pineal gland is activated and declassified in God, you're able to really walk your destiny, your blueprint, And so it's strong. And King Felipe, as you study him, you're able to really see that he's carrying his blueprint. He's strong like a father. He's presenting himself as a real stabilized king is because of his connection to God. The soul that he carries, it's it's stable, it's grounded, it's people are drawn to him. And he has this essence like any star seed, old soul. He has this essence to create whenever he walks into a room, the energy that he carries, people feel it, and it can magnify depending on the soul age, the soul experience, its evolution in life. Depending on the soul, the soul can be in a parking lot, and you can feel the magnitude of the soul itself. Anyway, so moving on, nor the ear filled. The ear, nor the ear filled. But let's just focus on the ear as we have these spiritual senses, past past the five senses. We have the spiritual eye, and then we have the spiritual ear. We have the third eye, the pineal gland, the ear, and hearing. The spiritual ear, if you ever hear a ringing in your ear, which is different from the tinnitus um, noise ring, those are two different noises. Hearing, ringing. The spiritual ear is more the inside. It's going to be more like behind the physical ear, back more like an inch into there. So the hearing also, you'll feel the your pineal gland activate, and you'll feel the energy within your own brain of where the muscle, the circuitry is actually opening up to the next realm of hearing. And that's actually a guidance from the higher up, from the heavens, from your angels, from your guides. And anyway, so that's what happens when the soul is activated. When the soul is activated, active, you have your spiritual, these are spiritual gifts that are opened up. The spiritual gifts that are opened up is to help yourself in alignment with God. You're actually working with God. So he's guiding you as you have your ears and your eyes open. Ears, eyes. And then so beyond the senses, you'll also feel you'll have this spiritual sense, like your spiritual ear of hearing and spiritual eyes of seeing. You'll have the spiritual sense of feeling where the person is at, even before they walked into the room or even before you met them. And like some people, they'll have a vision of what will happen in the future, a premonition. They'll have, so that's seeing where the eyes are open, the spiritual eyes. And they'll be actually one with the person as they move forward in life and see and walk it. And then those things that they saw in the future actually occur. So, anyways, so yeah, nor the ear filled with hearing. And on the physical level, that's where King Felipe was not satisfied with what he was hearing of his family or what was happening. He could have gotten like different types of reports of like, this is what your father was doing, but really he wasn't really doing that, or this is what your sister was doing, but really it may look like that, but it wasn't. And so he wasn't satisfied with what reports he was hearing, is because he was listening to God and he was being guided. And so he has the mandate by God to have that title to understand where his family members are. And without that type of awakening, you're unable to really discern where each soul is at in your family or in your business, or in the mission in life that you're doing. You're unable to discern what needs to happen because of that disconnect and that non-actualization. Anyways, so I hope you're able to really understand what I had presented here, and that comes down to our ending in this verse as we studied it word for word, as we studied the King James version of the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 1, verse 8. And now you see what you need to do, what you need to step into. Just get out of that box, get out of that comfort zone, and to really be who you need to be in God as you see corruption outside of you, and really stabilize your foundation and the workings within your environment, and really be bold and have those boundaries set, those responsibilities and accountability onto individuals that had stepped out of that alignment and that order. And yeah, and thank you again for joining me. And I'll see you in the next verse of the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 1, verse 9, and in the book of King James Version. And if this message really resonated with you, please pass it on to your family or your friends, and really dive in into the word for word when it comes to the verse whenever you're studying, and really allow God to really work with you, and allow him to see for allow him to show you what's presented in a more bigger context. And yeah, so we can all have this awakening and this growth, and a consciousness where we bring in higher light life. And thank you again. God bless.